Hello, welcome to A Marriage Interrupted. I am Felicia.
I'm Jonathan, and this is episode 1.
So our our first episode we did actually was just an introduction of who we are. So you all knew why we're here and even doing episode 1 in the first place. I put this together in hopes that we will be able to help people who have are in a marriage where one spouse has ADHD. But really, to get to that point, we need to all understand what ADHD is, what it really means, and how it's defined and where it comes from. So this episode is going to be one where we may read a bit more and share more on the diagnosis side of ADHD.
What is ADHD? And I'm going to be using cheat sheets because I can't remember everything as much as you can.
Okay, so there you go.
So we're going back and forth. But today's discussion will cover what ADHD is, the scientific definition of it. Because we are not, we are not scientists or experts in it. We're learning just as you are. And we'll go back and forth. And so that's Marriage Interrupted. That's where we're going to start.
I love it. And I do love it. Actually, I have to say, I'm very taken and interested in this whole topic, more and more so as time goes on. So hello and welcome again. Jonathan and I want to thank everyone. A huge thank you for being here and coming back after our intro. This means a lot to us. We thank you for listening.
We probably lost more people than we...
No, see, that's not a great attitude, Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky. I really in my heart believe that if I had this source, this avenue, if I knew that there's something like what we're doing out there, I think that would have helped me quite a bit in this process.
Me too.
It made my earlier years a little bit easier.
I just hate being the one that's about.
Do you?
The
Do you
butt
really
of the joke.
Do you hate
No.
it? No, I don't think he'd be here.
I'm willing to put myself out there to help somebody else in my same situation.
And I think in turn it'll help us. I hope. Because we can use help. Oh, okay. So as we said, the scientific definition, today's topic is to talk about the guts of ADHD. So what is ADHD? So this is the part you have to bear with me because I'm going to read a bit because this I did not memorize. American Psychiatric Association states it is one of the children's most common mental disorders. Now, I know that now has, this is from a report written by Beaton in 2022, but saying mental disorder has gotten some slack. So bear with me, I'm just going to read as is, and please don't send hate mail on some of the verbiage here. So symptoms of ADHD include inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. ADHD is considered a chronic and debilitating disorder and is known to impact individuals in many aspects of their life. And this includes academic, professional achievements, interpersonal relationships, and daily functioning. Adults with ADHD may experience poor self-worth, sensitivity towards criticism, increased self-criticism, possibilities stemming from higher levels of criticism throughout their lifetime. Do any of those ring true to you?
Yeah, poor self-worth, maybe. Daily functioning. Yeah.
Interpersonal relationships, professional achievements.
My relationships are great.
Yeah. Okay. So the National Institute of Mental Health says attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is marked by an ongoing pattern of inattention and hyperactivity impulsivity.
Squirrel.
Jonathan's got that down. Squirrel. squirrel all the time. And hyperactivity that interferes with functioning or development. People with ADHD experience a persistent pattern of the following types of symptoms: inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. And later on in one of our other shows, we're going to go a little bit further into those three because hyperactivity is often misunderstood. And many have said that that diagnosis may have been labeled incorrectly. But that is something that we will continue to share. So the Mayo Clinic's definition states that adult attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is a mental health disorder that includes a combination of persistent problems, which we've already shared. And one more, because I like the even numbers. I'm not sure where that came from. So I wrote that and I'm reading it, which makes no sense. But basically, CHAD, Children's Adults Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder Organization, defines ADHD as a real disorder. And I think that is the whole point of what I'm reading right now. So all of the symptoms that come with ADHD, often people will dismiss it. We actually have a family member who thinks you can cure it. I honor anyone who feels that way, and I welcome them to show me where there's any proof that ADHD can be cured. It can be controlled. It can be medically altered, but ADHD and the development of your frontal cortex and your inability to naturally produce dopamine is not curable. So, or at least nothing that I can find in all my years of researching. So I welcome anyone who can share that or find that for me. So it is a real disorder, and it can be devastating. It has devastating consequences, as we all know, in many areas of life. So now that that's out of the way, I am impressed that was about 4 minutes of scientific information, but nonetheless.
Oh my God, that's so hard.
Why?
Not to say something.
Oh, so this is what ADHD is. The reason we name this A Marriage Interrupted is because ADHD has interrupted our marriage. It is what's caused 90% of any of our problems that we've had, but also because one of Jonathan's most profound ADHD characteristics is an inability to not interrupt when he has a thought or not keep his thoughts under control. And there you go. What would you like to add to that and share?
I'm glad you read that part.
Because?
It just goes on and on and on.
No, I hope it didn't feel that way to you. But basically, I think the importance is ADHD is a real disorder, and the symptoms can be devastating.
I have to read some really boring stuff too, but it's important.
Is it boring though, or is it interesting? If it's boring,
no,
then we shouldn't be reading it.
It's instructive. I mean, you should basically know where it's come from, who studied it, how long people have been studying it. I mean, that's my part.
Okay, right? Sure, I'm ready.
I'm the one with ADHD, so and if you start learning about it and kind of hyper focus on it, it gets interesting. But so I'm going to read this as well. ADHD was first identified in 1902 by a British pediatrician, Sir George Still. He described the condition as an abnormal defect of moral control in children. He found that some affected children could not control their behavior as typical children would. Not typical children. He did note, however, that these children were still intelligent. Yeah, we are. Dr. Charles Bradley stumbled across some unexpected side effects of the medicine Benzedrine shortly after its approval by the FDA in 1936. So they've known for a while. He found that the behavior and performance in the school of young patients improved when he gave it to them. While Bradley's contemporaries mostly ignored his findings, Physicians and researchers later recognized the benefit of what Bradley had discovered. Go figure. The APA, what's the APA stand for? Issued its first edition of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, DSM, all these, in 1952. This manual listed all of the recognized mental disorders, and ID'd it also include known causes, risk factors, and treatments for each condition. However, the APA, there's APA again, failed to identify ADHD, we know what that means, in the first edition. In 1955, the FDA approved the cyclostimulant Ritalin, which became popular as an ADHD treatment as the disorder became better understood and diagnoses increased. The APA released a third edition of the DSM in 1980. So I had just graduated high school, so they still were.
But
I
they
had
knew
to go
it.
to high school without knowing any of this.
Well, they knew that way back, and yet the school system was not informed well enough to get the message across.
In that edition, hyperkinetic impulse disorder was changed to attention deficit disorder. Wow. The ADD, at that time, scientists believe that hyperactivity was not a common disorder symptom. In the DSM listing, there were two subtypes of ADD, ADD with hyperactivity and ADD without hyperactivity. In 1987, the hyperactivity distinction was removed and the name changed to attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, as we know it today. The APA combined the three symptoms, inattentiveness, impulsivity, and hyperactivity, into a single type and did not identify any disorder subtypes, whatever that means. The number of ADHD cases began to climb significantly in the 1990s, go figure. Researchers put forward that several factors were responsible for the rise in diagnosis. Very important. Doctors were now able to diagnose ADHD more efficiently. More parents were aware and are aware of ADHD and are reporting their children's symptoms. More children were developing ADHD. In 2000, the fourth edition of the DSM established three subtypes used by healthcare professionals today. Combined type ADHD, predominantly inattentive type ADHD, predominantly hyperactive impulsive type ADHD. Today, health researchers are investigating the causes of ADHD and possible treatments. Research indicates a strong genetic link and whatever role environmental factors play in determining who develops ADHD and not currently understood. As someone with ADHD, I can't help but ask, why? Why can't scientists answer why?
So as time goes on too, I think that is, they're learning more. They're always learning more. Every time I think I've read all I can read, there's more to read and I learn more. To be diagnosed with ADHD, the industry uses the DSM-5 diagnostic criteria for ADHD. And we will post that on this as well for you to be able to take the assessment. There are multiple assessments out there for you, but this is the one that is recommended for a diagnosis. Very similar to all the others. I think they base theirs off of the DSM-5. So, Jonathan, we know that you have ADHD, and how we learn that is for another show. We're going to talk more about that process in which we came to this diagnosis.
Another show, is that what we call them? A show?
Another show. We're putting on a show. Yeah, because we're such entertaining folk. So as a regular guy with no real formal training or scientific background, how would you, Jonathan, explain ADHD? Not scripted, from your heart. How would you describe it?
Frustrating. Um,
Frustrating for you, for when?
Frustrating all around. Now that I know what to look for, I can look for the tools necessary um, to help get through those times of.
But how would you describe it if someone came to you and said, I've heard of this thing ADHD. I have no idea what it is. How would you describe ADHD?
I have no idea. I have no idea how to describe it. I just look at it as uh, a I don't know. How do you describe it? How do you describe it?
One of the things you always say is that you feel like the rest of the world has a secret they haven't let you in on.
Good point. Is that part of ADHD?
I'm not sure. That's just you've always felt that you haven't achieved what you had hoped you would achieve because the world has a secret that you haven't been let in on.
Things you become more aware of. Being on time, our thing, interrupting. You listen to people more, and sometimes it can be very hard to hold back your thoughts because a lot of times you forget them. I don't know if ADHD is part of memory, but short-term memory is.
Definitely is.
Yeah, is it? I didn't get that chapter yet. Or I forgot about it.
I forgot about it. So I think that when one would ask about ADHD, I think one of the things that I'm coming across, or I've come across quite often, is the definition is really a tight definition, and yet it's not, because ADHD has three components. You are one of the three, right? But within that are all the other components. So you can be diagnosed with ADHD. You can rank very high on the chart for ADHD, but not have all the symptoms of ADHD, because there are symptoms that you don't have to still have ADHD. Am I explaining that correctly? So for instance, Jonathan has a habit of interrupting and has a difficult time waiting to speak when something's on his mind. Jonathan has gotten so much better with time, but has definitely trouble with time, right? Before it was even worse, but being on time, recognizing time.
I can tell time, so I don't have a problem with telling.
He can definitely tell time very well. You just choose not
Getting lost in time.
Getting lost in time. Not following through on responsibilities. There's clutter everywhere, living in clutter, not being able to.
You mean the list is like this now?
Yeah, it's a list, but there are many things on that list that Jonathan doesn't have. Like, one is a temper, being angry. Jonathan, he gets angry as our relationship goes on. When we first 10 years of our marriage, he never got angry at all. Now he gets angry, but he has never hit me. He has never called me a name. He has never acted out on that sense.
So you got mad at me for calling you a name today when we were discussing something. I called you sweetie.
That's not an abusive name. That's whenever Jonathan wants to make a point of his frustration, he'll say sweetie, and that drives me nuts. But that is not a negative name. It's not name calling. It just aggravates the crap out of me. I'm just saying.
I do call you names.
But it's a different kind of calling names, and so it's, to have ADHD doesn't mean you have to have every single symptom of ADHD. But the more you learn about ADHD, the more you realize that there's a pattern and there's an underlining. I don't know, and again, we hope that everyone will share with us if you do have ADHD, but you don't have trouble with time. That's a possibility. If you have ADHD and you don't have trouble holding in your feelings, if you have ADHD and you don't need, the same type of dopamine rush that others do. And I'm sure there's different levels of ADHD. I know personally for Jonathan, his ADHD peaks at times. So there are times in our marriage where his ADHD is pretty much non-existent. Like, no one would ever know. Then the other time in ADHD where it's to the max, where I just want to leave. I don't know how to function. There's no communication. I'm going crazy. And then most of our life is that in between. It's there, but it's not horrific. But it's there. And I'm kind of assuming that's for most people. Now, Jonathan, we've decided not to take medication. You have decided not to go that route. So we do other things, which is another show as well. So let's see here. Do we have anything else that's really important to read or share? Anything else that on the scientific end of it?
Again, we're reading from these. Originally, we were going to make a podcast so we could read right off these, but now that we've went to video, we have to kind of.
That's okay. So go ahead and this is here, and why don't you read that portion of it, and then we can kind of chat from there.
Okay. Here goes. Here goes.
It says here goes.
Let's see. Because we wrote this a while ago, but still, because marriage is hard for the average couple. Two people coming together from different worlds, different cultures to create a new home is not easy. Throw into ADHD into that equation, and difficult becomes almost impossible. If my only fault were I left my socks and occasionally forgot to close the cabinet door, my entire existence would be completely different. My ADHD has hurt the one person who means the most to me. It's as if I know what I do that is hurtful, and I promise myself not to repeat it, and then I do it again. I apologize, feel terrible, and I promise I won't do it again, but I do it again and again. And each time I feel as if I'm pushing the love of my life further and further away. I am unaware of what I'm doing while doing it, and when I am, I cannot seem to stop myself. Every day I wake up knowing how blessed I am, that my wife is there beside me, and at night I give thanks that we've made it through another day and she hasn't left me. And that, my friends, is the sad truth.
So, full disclosure, I have slept on the couch. I've slept on the floor. I have.
She likes sleeping on the floor for some reason.
I have left the home a few times, but I keep coming back, and I keep fighting for this. I wish I could say that. For us personally, there was the diagnosis, and then the rest of the world was just great and everything was wonderful, because it didn't work that way. The diagnosis actually for the first few months made it worse, and we're going to discuss that more later. But at this point in our relationship, we're fighting for it, and whatever it takes to make it through. And so with the knowledge of what ADHD is, knowing that it is real, knowing the symptoms and what they mean, is truly why we're here and why we're doing these videos, in hopes that we can share comments and stories and help each other through this process.
Mm-hmm. That's our goal, right?
Uh-huh. So our journey is just beginning. We have the book A Marriage Interrupted, where Jonathan and I share the story and our journey, our website, and also our blog. And all of this has been put together with a lot of love, a lot of frustration, a lot of raw truth, in hopes that we are able to help more couples on their journey, as we had hoped we had more help on our journey in the
Would
process.
be nice, huh?
ADHD is real, and all that goes with it. And we are here to say that we hope that if you're in a marriage, you don't give up without a fight, and take the steps to work as a team and make it better. I also am one to say that if it's just too much and you're unhappy for too long, then
I was just thinking of a fight, but in a different context. We don't want to promote fighting, but we want you to fight for the marriage.
well, this is true. But you're gonna fight if you're married, and you're gonna fight even more if you're married to someone who has ADHD. But that's okay, because it's all in that growth and that process. One of the things Jonathan had mentioned, and it's true, is repeating that pattern. And I think the goal is to try to find a way to break the pattern wherever and whenever possible. And in our case, many of those patterns have not been broken yet. One of which is time. Time has been broken. He's doing so much better with time. We joke because we have an app on our phone that shows where all our family members are. So where Jonathan used to say, "I'm on my way," and he wasn't, I didn't
get
know.
away with that anymore.
He can't get away with it because now I know he hasn't left his location yet. And so that's helped him with his management of time and his truth telling. It just kind of works out that way. But and is that something that you resent, or does it bother you?
No, it helps me keep on track, actually. Knowing that all these people can see where I am, I have to either call and say, "Hey, I'm running a little bit late." Go figure. Because you already know I'm running a little bit late.
Yeah.
But it's me fessing up. Where in bygone days, I would just forget about it and not be aware of it.
Thank you all so much for being here today and to listening to our story.
We'll get better.
Oh, I think it's great. We're being honest. It's true. It's coming from the heart. It's who we are.
But is it helpful?
It's helping me. I hope it's helping you. A Marriage Interrupted. I am Felicia.
I'm Jonathan. Have a great